Hello there, welcome back. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to have a conversation about what are the barriers to academic success. If you know what the barriers are, then you can begin to try to figure out how to remove those or overcome them. We'll be talking about that in today's video. What are these barriers? Well, of course, socioeconomic background, the stress, how students deal with stress, the mental health side of things, special education, learning disabilities, those are going to be factored in. Motivation, of course, motivation is a factor, but inevitably they all point to my favorite topic. All of those things can fall under the guise of your mindset. So we'll be discussing all of that in this video. Socioeconomic status is a significant obstacle. The lower you are in that standing, the more challenges you have performing well academically. And so much of it is because you haven't had good models on how to go about learning. You don't have a great environment that is really supportive of learning. You haven't been kind of instilled with positive beliefs around learning. You haven't developed the good habits around learning. All of those things are really, in large part, because you don't have that in your background history, which is one of the reasons you are in that lower socioeconomic standing. Data will tell you that the less education you have, and by education, we aren't just talking about schooling, but we're talking about all those things I just mentioned that impacts your socioeconomic status. So when you're born into it, it becomes an obstacle from you achieving higher levels of success. Stress is obviously an obstacle. People who are under stress on a regular basis, it's not good for the mind or the body. You cannot perform up to your optimum when you're under stress. The more consistent it is, the more detrimental it is, again, to both mind and body. And what we're really talking about with stress is being stuck in the emotion of stress. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But students who come from lower socioeconomic status tend to experience a lot of stress. So that's part of that explanation. But on the other end of the spectrum, kids who come from high achieving households can also be experiencing high levels of stress as they're trying to live up to these expectations that they are feeling thrust upon them. So stress is not just low socioeconomic. It can also come from the other end of the spectrum for different reasons. But regardless, that's going to impact their ability to reach their full potential. In one of the districts I taught in, I had both examples from both ends of that spectrum in my program. Somebody who's did not fit that community's socioeconomic norm by any stretch of the imagination, way down on that lower end, trapped in the cycle of poverty, all the things that come with that. I had her as a student. And on the other end of the spectrum, I had a student who was extremely well off, lived in one of the nicest homes in the town, had this high expectations of trying to go to the top colleges, kind of do what everybody in their family has done, exceed at a higher level. And both of these students had some real barriers, emotionally speaking, and the stress associated with, in the one case, living up to those standards and expectations, and the other kind of trying to escape the trap of having no expectations and no standards. In each case, we had to try to break down those barriers, those obstacles that were emotional and stress related. Unquestionably, learning disabilities factor in on your ability to have success. I have my master's degree in special education. I've worked in the special education realm for a while. Not all the students I worked with had learning disabilities. All of them did not qualify for special education. But those who did, and those learning disabilities, would get in the way. And we had to learn to deal with that. We had to help them deal with that. Those are obstacles or barriers, but that does not mean just because a barrier is set up doesn't mean that you can't get around, over, through that barrier. It's there. We have to deal with it. So those learning challenges, be it things like dyslexia or processing speed or memory or any of those kind of special ed intellectual terms, once we know what they are, then we can develop strategies for trying to help children overcome, get through, over, around those barriers. All these obstacles are going to influence motivation. Inevitably, over the years, when I've had kids from low socioeconomic backgrounds or under high levels of stress or with special needs, they have not been motivated. They haven't been motivated because they've had all these obstacles getting in their way of success, and that kills motivation. So no question, those three are going to influence motivation. Another thing that we often think about, or maybe we don't think about it enough with motivation, is what happens at a young age when kids are naturally curious about certain things, but if it's not fitting into what they're supposed to be doing in that moment, that curiosity begins to get squashed and dampened and tramped on, and that can kill motivation. Curiosity is a huge motivator for learning. And children at a very young age are innately curious. They want to learn. They are taking in information all the time, and they're trying to process it and figure it out. Unfortunately, what begins to happen, in my view, at far too young an age, is that begins to get stamped out for a whole lot of reasons, or far too many to kind of go into this video. But we got to understand that role in motivation, and also how your mindset's going to play into motivation, right? Your mindset's going to play into all of these things. When kids came into our program, and when I've worked with these kids over the years, the beliefs that they have, the emotions that they're holding on to, the values that they hold, those things, which are all components of mindset, were the ultimate barriers. They might have been beliefs that came about because of their socioeconomic background. They might be the values that came about because of the socioeconomic background. It could be the emotions they're holding on to because of the stress they're under, regardless of where they are on that spectrum. Different stressors, different emotions, but emotions nonetheless that are inhibiting full access to their mind, really, their cognitive functioning and thinking. Learning to deal with those emotions is a mindset-related task. All of those things, even the learning disabilities. Our job in special education was to get them kind of caught up and develop some ways to deal with whatever the learning challenge is, so they don't need the special education services anymore. They can learn to function with the condition that they have going forward. Again, those disabilities, I've said it before, I don't like that word, those challenges oftentimes are as much related to the emotion, internal strategies that they are running and the beliefs they have, as they are something organic. And when you help show them better strategies, give them better beliefs and better emotions, all of a sudden they begin to achieve more. Now, maybe because their processing speed isn't very good, or their memory, working memory isn't great. Maybe they don't achieve as well as other people. That's fine. What we are getting them to is to maximize their potential, all related to mindset. And I've used a number of examples in past videos that are worth repeating. All right, whether it's Andy, who scored at the bottom 10th percentile in math, and we got him to the 50th percentile in 1 year, or whether it's Katie, who had such anxiety that she wasn't attending physically or emotionally, and by the time she graduated high school, she gets into a top college that has a 7% success rate. I could go on and on with all kinds of them, but those are two of like my poster child examples because they epitomize what we see as obstacles and how they overcame those. Well, that ends another video, and I really hope you take the lesson home with you that any of these barriers can easily be overcome. That's what you should learn from this video, and I hope you did. You might want to subscribe so you can check out our other videos. In particular, check out the video, What Subjects Do I Teach in a Home School? So check that video out today, and I will see you in the next one.